Hi, welcome back. Okay, so this is an important video for newbies. This is Teresa with Indigo Moon Arts, and I'm showing you how I make bottles. Again, in fairness, this may not be the way you do it or people you know do it. This is the way I do it. All I'm doing is sharing my techniques and hoping that might help some of you with some struggles or maybe information you didn't have or whatever. Anyway, separately, I do buy most of my bottles. Some are donated, of course, from friends, but I buy my wine bottles off of Amazon. They're the cheapest that I could find them. These are 750 milliliter, so keep careful counting your ounces. Some of those bottles are tiny, and you shop. You just absolutely shop until you find the best deal. Etsy will sell crown bottles, other whiskey bottles. They are expensive, so shop around or ask friends, or also eBay. But between shipping and other things, you really have to be discerning to get good deals on bottles. So once you get your bottle and it's nice and clean, and I buy mine, I don't like picking labels off because you need goop and other stuff, so I like to spend a little bit extra to have the bottle label free. Also, this is a slight bit of texture, I want to say, but how successful your adherence is has to do with texture. You want to try to put your images on glass that is clean and flat and not untextured. That's your best results for adherence. Of course, we use Mod Podge. So what I do is I use one of these, and I basically do the entire bottle in Mod Podge, and I'm pretty liberal with it. I do not use it sparingly. However, that's a technique issue too, where too heavy might create bubbles and so forth. So go slow and figure out your own pace to try to eliminate bubbles. These create bubbles a little bit more, but I like the texture they leave versus a brush, which paintbrushes leave streaks. So once you have that, you end up with a nicely primered kind of base. And then this is what I use. A lot of people use different things, but I use Liquitex Basic Acrylic Gesso, or Gesso, however you want to say it. And I will then, same thing, I like the texture that it leaves, so I don't mind that it's imperfect. I think that creates part of the beauty. I use one of these foam, and I dip, and I just put it on the bottle, and then the wonderful bottle is now done. When the bottle is done, don't forget to do the bottom. When the bottle is done, then I adhere the picture, right? Okay, so people are always asking, what are you using? What are you using? People use napkins, people use scrapbook, people use a lot of things. I use rice paper. Rice paper is it's a thin, beautiful blend. And when you buy rice papers, if you're buying rice papers, the best size is like 4 images per 8.5 by 11 for an average size bottle. If you're using smaller bottles, obviously you want smaller images, but that's just helps you understand what size you're looking for to get started. You can always cut off the excess, but it creates a nice kind of image size-wise. So now we've done this, and then what you do, is you use the Mod Podge on the area where you're putting the image. So I will then, either using a brush or one of these, wherever I know the image is going to be, I put a healthy amount of Mod Podge, put the image down, and then put a healthy amount of it back over, rubbing it out. I even use my finger, but, smoothing it, pressing it lightly enough that it takes the air bubbles out without ripping it. This is my problem with napkins, why I use napkins less. You have to be very gentle with a napkin. You can also wet an image if your image is thick. But I'm not going to talk about that right now because that is a completely different animal. So let's just assume we're going with a rice paper piece. We're putting down a healthy amount where the image is. Make sure your corners have glue underneath, and then you go over top. And then that's how the image gets on. And you can see what that looks like and how it's kind of centered. I trim my edges so that they're not sharp, because when I blend, that makes a difference. Then we get on to what I usually do, and a blending video is going to be completely separate, is then I cover the bottle in one complete color. And I usually pick the color based on something prominent in the background of the image, When we do blending, the paint's going to be wet. So again, it looks kind of crude, it looks unimpressive. But some people that don't blend or don't know how to blend will kind of stop here. And this is where the difference of how the finished product looks. You want to be able to, you can see I got paint on my hands. You want to be able to blend your images into the bottle. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a video. Anyway, and you use these wonderful things, are the best. So once you coat your entire bottle, you can use one of these lovely foam brushes or a regular brush. I really prefer these. They cover a lot of real estate pretty quickly. And I like the texture that they leave. When we blend, we're going to use these. Anyway, then you get to, this is a blended bottle. You can see this was the image that I used. And this is a blended bottle. And it starts to have a more rustic, it's multiple colors. I'm going to show you how to do all that. This one again is not done, so, but you can see where I left the blending sort of unfinished. There are 3 or 4 colors in here, and you can also see how we've kind of made less of a distinction between the actual image and the actual bottle. And that's how that happens from here, where it's kind of hard, you know, it's a hard line versus a soft line. And I use mostly acrylic paint, little craft paints, and I use the home decor chalk paints, and I blend them. And that creates these kind of images. And then, like here's gray. And then finally, once you have a bottle that has been fully blended, you can see how it, like from a distance, you can barely even see that there's an image there. And then before I do anything else, I fully coat the bottle with an acrylic varnish, always matte. If you're doing something fancy and you want to use gloss, but these bottles, especially if you want to have an antique or more rustic look, use matte for everything. No satin paints, no gloss paints, strictly matte finish, and that keeps it kind of like old aged, whatever. Lastly, because this video is already getting long, I want to show you about the molds that go on the outside of the bottles. I'll do this in a separate video, but how you create the embellishments that go on the bottle, pretty simple, and how you make them look like metal is using gilding wax. Really, really easy. None of this is difficult, and none of it really takes a lot of time either. So we'll get to another video. I hope you all found that helpful. If you have questions, just ask. Bye.